Merry Christmas to everybody, and welcome along to this latest podcast as we preview the Seahawks-Rams game, which is coming up this weekend. The Seahawks have had a really tough job competing with the Rams over the years, not just since Sean McVay came to LA, and previously under Jeff Fisher. They were also a really tough matchup for the Seahawks. For some reason, whatever the formation of this team is, whether it is the McVay offense with Jared Goff, or even when you go back to when Austin Davis was the quarterback there and they were relying on Aaron Donald and Robert Quinn and Chris Long and people like that on the defensive line, the Rams have always just been a really difficult opponent for the Seahawks. And I think this game is really going to tell us so much about this 2020 Seahawks team and whether or not they're able to take the next step, whether or not they can go on and do what they haven't done since 2016, which is win the NFC West, and whether they can go on and have a really serious playoff push. And I define a serious playoff push as getting to the NFC Championship game. It's something they've not done since the 2014 season. They're long overdue being in that championship game and giving themselves 60 minutes to try and get back to the Super Bowl. So I think there's a lot at stake here. Then we're going to learn a lot about this team. Robbie, how are you feeling going into this crucial, decisive contest in the NFC West?
I am really excited for this game. I am apart from my emotional outburst when we barely beat the Washington football team and how frustrated I was with that game, even though we won, I am really excited. And it has nothing to do with the fact that the Rams lost to the Jets. The Rams could have beat the Jets, and I think I would still have the same excitement. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just pretty excited because we've got a lot of things going for us that we didn't have last time we played them. Last time we were starting Alex Collins and DJ Dallas was running the football, and we didn't have Chris Carson. We didn't have Rashad Penny. We didn't have Carlos Hyde. We have a plethora of running backs now that can actually run the football. And I'm really just excited to see how our defense fares now that they've been playing, a little bit better, even though, you got to look at the opponent really, but I'm just excited to see how it goes. I mean, this is what we asked for, right? This is what we want. We've always kind of circled this game as being the game that would be the defining moment of our season, and it's here. And so now I'm just excited. I mean, and the opportunity to finally claim the NFC West again, win, and it's ours. And that's what I want. I want to win the NFC West, and I want to see us make a deep run. So I'm excited to see how we play. I'm fired up for this game.
I will take any kind of win, as will any Seahawks fan. If it's a 1-point game and however it comes about, if you offered me that now, of course, everybody would snatch your hands off for it. You just want to win. I would love to see the Seahawks, Robbie. I'm trying not to state the obvious here, but I want to see them really win convincingly against the Rams. I think that's the one thing that has really been missing, and that we haven't had a game this year where you could say that was a truly quality win. That's a playoff challenging victory there. Seahawks have not had many opportunities for those games. I mean, in hindsight, if they'd have played properly in Buffalo and won there, that could have been an opportunity because Buffalo are clearly one of the best teams in the NFL this year. But, whether it's beating the Dallas team or New England or Minnesota or Arizona, San Francisco, none of these opponents really, when you beat them, you sort of say, this is how I imagine the Seahawks playing in the postseason and winning. And they have to have that game. I want to see a game similar to the 2013 New Orleans Saints victory in Seattle. And if they can come out in this game and win handsomely and make a bit of a statement, it's just going to give everybody so much more belief. It allows people, doubters, of which, I don't think there's anything wrong with being skeptical of this team's potential and how far they can go in the postseason. But if they go out and really take it to the Rams and get a really good win and then finish it off against the Niners in week 17 and go into that postseason on a bit of a roll at 12-4, winning the division, who knows where they would end up in the seeding. If it's 1, if it's 2, if it's 3, whatever. If they go into that postseason with a bit of momentum going there, then we can all look forward to it. And we can look forward to the Seahawks being a team that nobody really wants to face in the playoffs, as opposed to a team who, let's be right, over the last few years, they win a game, they get dumped out by a superior opponent, We don't want to see that again. We want to see them do more this year in the postseason. And I really want to see them do well in this Rams game because I think it'll be a precursor to potential success in the postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just really want to see them I mean, obviously a win, any kind of win. I mean, we said this against Washington too, but then as soon as this game was over, I was frustrated. But I would really want to just see them, if they do get a lead, hold that lead and attack. I really want to see a kind of an attack mode team. And this is kind of why I was frustrated with the last time. This is because, like, we almost blew a 17-point lead, and that's frustrating. And I want to see more. I want to see us really go after it. I think this is not going to be that kind of game, though. I mean, if I had to predict kind of how I think this is going to go, I think the Rams are going to start hot. I think they're going to come out. They're going to be throwing the football. They're without Cam Akers, so maybe they'll try to get the ball in Darrell Henderson's hands or something like that. But they're trying the quick slant passes, try to get Cooper Kupp going, these guys, Robert Woods, and really start attacking the Seattle's defense. And I think they're going to come out hot, and then we're going to probably play some catch up. And I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm feeling pretty good right now about how this is going to go. And just the opportunity that we've been wanting the whole time is right in front of us. So I'm just excited. I'm excited for Sunday, man. I just needed to get here.
Yeah, and if anybody's sort of wondering about that whole Washington game, as much as Robbie and I both said we would take any kind of a win and grounding it out on taking the pass rush out of it, yeah, that all went. At no point did we say in our pre-Washington game, and if they could just nearly blow a 17-point lead as well, just to make it exciting at the end, that'd be just fine and dandy. That was not part of the prediction, so let's just get that out there straight away. I don't really know what to make of this Rams team, Robbie. There's been periods during the season when I've watched the Rams and I've thought they might be the best team in the NFC. And when they went to Tampa Bay, for example, and won well, and I think that was before maybe Tampa Bay. People were still viewing Tampa Bay as a really dangerous opponent at that point. They still are. I mean, this is a conversation maybe for another day. I don't think many teams will fancy playing Tom Brady in the playoffs. Even if you end up winning that game, it's Tom Brady, it's the Bucs, it's Bruce Arians. He's had success against Seattle. I'd kind of like somebody else to knock them out in the playoffs if possible. So the Rams won there. The Rams handled the Bears when the Bears were, on their winning streak, and that's what sort of sent the Bears plummeting. That they hammered Washington, they hammered the Eagles early in the season. They played a bit of a messy game against the Bills like the Seahawks did, but they should have won at the end. And if it wasn't for a bad refereeing call, they would have won in Buffalo. They hammered the Patriots a couple of weeks ago. But then you look at some of their other results. They've lost to the Niners twice. That's perhaps not that surprising because essentially Sean McVay is a disciple of the Mike Shanahan offensive scheme, and Kyle Shanahan knows that better than anybody other than his dad. So Kyle's probably used some of that wisdom to try and hold back this offense, which is why the Niners have won. But still, that's 2 wins for the Niners against the Rams. 2, what I would say, even though the scoreline ended up being close on both occasions, there were 2 convincing wins for the Niners. The Rams have had some other bad performances. They like the Seahawks, they nearly lost to the Giants at home when the Giants weren't as hot as maybe they were when they came to Seattle. And it all sort of culminates in that very, very embarrassing loss to the Jets last week, where they lose to the worst team in football, who the Seahawks beat 40 points to 3 the previous week. And I just don't know what to expect, Robbie, because I've seen this Rams team really kick Seattle's arse over the years, even when they've not been playing that great. I mean, you think to them in the game this season, the Rams weren't exactly flying when they played Seattle, but Seattle just looked awful in that game. Really bad, and deservedly lost handsomely. And at the end of last season, the Rams weren't playing great. They got hammered by Baltimore in their own backyard, but still handled the Seahawks. So I'm a little bit wary that even when the Rams aren't playing great, they somehow seem to elevate against Seattle, or even the Seahawks regress against the Rams. So part of me wants to go into this game feeling really confident because they've lost to the Jets and they're a 9-5 team. And if they lose this, they'll be 9-6. And maybe that's just what the Rams are, a 9-10 win team, because they've got the Cardinals and who are chasing the playoffs. That's no gimme in week 17. They could be 9-7 for all we know. Maybe that's just what the Rams are. Or are they going to come to Seattle and do what they've done in the last 6 games? They're 5-1. They should be 6-0. it wasn't for Greg the Leg, and just win again. And that's the thing about this game. I just don't know what to expect.
Yeah, I think the reason why I'm a little more confident, Rob, just for the simple fact that in the last game, yeah, we lost 23-16. It felt like it was a lot higher. Like it felt like we got whooped. But and the reality is the Rams only scored 6 points in the second half, and we only scored 3. We were running the ball with Alex Collins and DJ Dallas. I mean, Russell Wilson led the team in rushing that game. And, I'm excited to have Chris Carson and Carlos Hyde back. And I mean, even Rashard Penny, get him the ball maybe a little bit more. I mean, just some better players to attack this Rams defense, because this is their strength. I think is their defense and that defensive line for sure. And if we can get to Goff and really put some pressure on him, and slow down the running game, I think we can win this game. I think it's going to be. I really do think it's going to be close. I'm excited to see the DK Metcalf, Jalen Ramsey matchup again. I really hope my only worry about that matchup is that Ramsey is in DK's head, and that how DK can get a little fired up and get a little pushy. I'm hoping that he stays controlled, stays mindful, and doesn't do anything stupid to get any sort of like penalty that kills a big drive or something like that. I just don't want him to get taken out of the game mentally. So if he can stay in there mentally and get after Ramsey, I'm excited to see this matchup. And again, it falls on Russ. Russ has got to play lights out. He's got to play, one of his best football games of the year. And I know Russ can do it. He just has to turn around and get the lights going. So I really want to see them come out with a good game plan. I want to see them run the football, run the play action, and then try to get the ball in DK's hand and see what happens.
I think what really worries me a little bit, Robbie, is that as bad as Seattle played, I'm trying to think back to the last 2 games. So the one this season and the one at the end of last season. So the game this year, you're right. The Rams kind of in the second half didn't really do anything. Part of me wonders whether they just sort of tried to save some gas in that second half and went down into second or third gear, because it just felt like they were in control of the game and they almost managed it on offense to avoid giving any back-breaking turnovers over that would have potentially flipped it. It was as if we've got a healthy lead. The Seahawks aren't doing anything on offense. We just have to sort of get through this and we will win. And they did in the end. I mean, Seattle was so bad in that game. It was so poor. Wilson was at his worst, in that game. And it never really felt like, I kind of feel like maybe if the Rams had ever needed to get back up into 4th, 5th, 6th gear, then maybe they would have done. We'll never know. But it felt as if the reason for that second half was the Rams going back. But then I don't think the Rams played particularly well. I mean, when you look at the numbers, they had 106 rushing yards on 30 carries. They weren't running it particularly effectively. Goff threw 37 times, but had a QBR of 53.9, which is a very average performance from him. And then when you actually think back to the game at the end of last season, Goff threw 2 horrible interceptions. And the Seahawks came flying out in that game and put together a long scoring drive. And it was just that they had no resistance. And this is the problem. Very early in that game at the end of last season, it was like they had no answer. The Rams just marched up and down the field. They kept scoring points until a point when they didn't need to score anymore because Seattle only scored 12. They won, I think, 28-12 in the end. The Seahawks were so incapable of putting points on the board and mounting drives that the adjustments that the Rams made during the game, Seattle had no counterpunch. They were just knocked out and they couldn't get off the canvas. And that was it. And the same thing kind of happened in the game this year as well. And it worries me a little bit because is this going to happen again? Are we going to get to a point where the game starts out, and even if the Seahawks have a good first drive, good opening drive, as soon as the Rams have figured things out on defense, are the Seahawks going to be stalled? And have the Seahawks got it within them to restrict the Rams early so that they can attack them later in the game from a more advantageous position and not having to come from behind all of the time, which you don't really want to do against Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and everybody else. And that's why I don't. It really makes me itch this opponent, Robbie, because I kind of feel like if it was anybody else, like if the Packers were playing the Rams, they'd be thinking, they'd be rubbing their hands together and going, God, bring them on. They've just lost to the Jets. They're not very good. Get them in here and let's give it a go. And that, from Seattle's point of view, I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, Ooh, you know what? I'm just not sure because of the way that these games always seem to be. And there's one other thing that I want to mention. Everybody is kind of saying, well, the Seahawks are running the ball well. That'll help them. This will. For me, there's only really been 3 games where the Seahawks have come close to beating the McVay Rams. On all 3 occasions, it's because Russell Wilson was throwing bombs downfield, points, points, points. The 2 games in 2018 could have gone either way. Coin flip. Both teams put up a stack of points, 30-odd points each. The game at the start of 2019, which Seattle won, stacks of points. When the game is reduced to these wars of attrition, Robbie, the Seahawks have lost 28-12 and 23-16. I can, if it's going to be that type of game, and it is because Pete's talking about Pete Ball constantly in a minute, if it's going to be that kind of a game, can the Seahawks beat the Rams that way? Is going to be a question that I will be interested to see answered this weekend.
Well, I'm just going to go back to the last 2 games that you were talking about, and just throw out again. This year we were rolling with Alex Collins, who just came off the street, and DJ Dallas. And last year we brought Marshawn Lynch off out of Oakland to come hang out and run the football for us. And I think we were starting Travis Homer at that time. So in my opinion, Chris Carson is the X factor in this whole thing. If we can get him going and running the football, and not even just running the football, if we can get him on, some screen passes or, running him out of the backfield, these kind of things are, I think, going to benefit us big time going forward. And, you can look at some other ones where we did have our running backs and such like that and such, but I just really feel like having Carlos Hyde, having Chris Carson is going to be a big time, X factor for us. Because if you look at this last game that we played, I mean, if we would have had those guys in the second half, I think the game would have been a lot different. I think we would have been able to we couldn't establish the run, really. We did a little bit early on. I think Alex Collins did have like a 12 or 15-yard touchdown run. But I mean, even then it felt like it was just 1 yard, 2 yards. It wasn't, other than Russ running, we weren't getting much out of it. So I really think that these guys are going to be the X factor. And that's why I feel more confident in this game going forward, that we have an opportunity to win because of Chris Carson, because of the way that our running backs are playing healthy. I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying by people saying, oh, well, we're running the football better. I just think that they added an element that we didn't have previously that they have to account for now. Right, like previously they could be like, well, they're rolling out Alex Collins.
Well, in fairness, Carson played in the 2019 game. He actually played
the final one.
Yeah, he played.
Oh,
He ran 15 times for 76 yards. That was the game where Rashad Penny actually injured his knee, so he took a pass for 16 yards, went down very early in the game, and was out. So CJ Prosise had a carry in the game as a consequence. But Carson was healthy. Carson got hurt against Arizona, which was week 16, wasn't it? I think it was week 16. That might have been the week after or a couple of weeks after. But Carson played in that game in which they lost in 2019, but obviously didn't play earlier this year. And it's just one other sort of trend before we move on with this. I think there's 2 things, Robert. In that game against in 2019, the Rams ran for, I'm just sort of trying to calculate, about 160, 170 yards. So, you've got to limit their running game first and foremost. They just did a better job doing that, in the game this year. But the Rams will try and run, and if they can run, all of the play action and all of the sweeps, and they all sort of build off that running game. They've shown that this year. When they can run, they can do all of their other stuff as well. The key to beating the Rams for me is stopping the run and then getting pressure on Jared Goff, which you have to do. We have to be able to do both. You have to be able to stop the run and get the pressure. Can the Seahawks do that? We'll see. And so the other thing is the tight ends. Seahawks had a real tough time dealing with the LA's tight ends. So last year, Tyler Higbee, 116 yards of 7 catches. And then in the game this year, it was Reynolds had 8 for 94. He's not a tight end, but he's kind of sort of bigger risk. And then Higbee 60 yards from 3 carries. And, and Everett had 27 on 2 carries and 2 receptions, sorry. It works, doesn't it? The Rams want to run and they want to play action and they want to get the tight ends on the move. And I'm going to be so interested to see how the Seahawks handle this, because the Seahawks are a team, Robbie, that are capable of stopping the run. and they have shown at times in the last few weeks, they're a side capable of creating pressure. Can they put it all together? I'm desperate to see them do it and manhandle this Rams offense, which is run by a bloke who should be sat in a pair of beach shorts with a surfboard, not quarterbacking in the NFL, right? Jared Goff has beaten the Seahawks too many times for my palate, quite frankly. And I want to see him sacked 5 times in this game. I want to see a running game minus their high pick, Cam Akers, shut down. I want to see Aaron Donald throwing his helmet on the floor like he did against the Jets and he did against the Niners. I want to see him itching for someone to fight with on the field because he is ticked off because the Rams have been pushed around. Too many times the Seahawks have been pushed around by this Rams team. If this Seahawks team wants respect and wants to earn faith and belief from everybody, not just fans like me and you, but the nation, to take them seriously, go and give the Rams a shoe-in this game on Sunday. It's as simple as that, Robbie.
I just want to let's just establish a run. Let's get after Goff and give Russ some time to throw the football. Get DK going early, get Tyler going early. I'd love to see us target our tight ends. I think this is a very winnable game for us, and we just have to really establish our dominance. And now's the time. The NFC West is on the line. This is what you want. This is what we've been waiting for. This game has been circled for a long time for all of us, and now it's time to go beat the team that we've had the hardest time beating.
I think there's just a few of the quick topics, Robbie, to quickly get on with. I think, how do you feel about missed opportunities this year? I'm not sure that in previous years, and we were talking about this with Adam in 2016, I felt really frustrated that the Seahawks lost to the Cardinals late on in the year, and it denied them the chance to be the number 2 seed, get a bye. They would have played the Falcons in Seattle as opposed to Atlanta. And who knows what would have happened in that scenario with a home crowd and Atlanta having to play an extra game and then travel to Seattle. I mean, it could have been a completely different situation. And it could have even been a rematch of New England-Seattle in the Super Bowl. Who knows? I mean, look, Atlanta played very well that year and should have won that Super Bowl. But when I actually look at the situation that right now, Robbie, if the Seahawks had just beaten the Giants, then they'd be the number 1 seed right now. And we'd be talking about this on top of the NFC West thing. We'd be talking about the importance of finishing the job and being the number 1. And I still think that being the number 1 seed matters. I know a few people, Steve Smith was saying, was ridiculously saying, it doesn't matter being number 1 because of the home field's not there anymore, the advantage. But look, there's a reason why the number 1 seed for the last however many years in both conferences has made the Super Bowl. It's that bye is so important. And you play one less game and teams have to travel to you. It's not a down the road trip. You can't walk to Seattle. You've got to get a huge plane journey. Some of these teams, imagine if it was Tampa Bay having to travel to Seattle. It's a long trip. It's not an easy traveling journey to make, even on a top class facility on a plane. It's difficult. It's worth being number 1. So if they'd have beaten the Giants, but then I also look back to it, Robbie, it's not just the Giants game really. I mean, you could even point to the fourth quarter against the Cardinals, and you could say, well, why? They should have finished that game as well. And there's another game that they could have had. But then I think what weighs it off for me, the reason why I don't feel too frustrated about all of this is Seattle's losses. It's the beat down in Buffalo and the Rams game the first time, Robbie, which makes me think, I don't think the Seahawks really deserve to be number 1. And I know that the Packers have had some horrible defeats themselves. Losing in Tampa Bay the way that they did, for example, was really bad. And they've not exactly played sparkling football consistently throughout the year. But I don't really feel like the Seahawks deserve to be the number 1 seed. I don't feel like they've necessarily played to be the number 1 seed. So I'm not too downhearted about the fact that they probably should be in pole position for that and may well have to settle for 2 or 3.
I mean, I'm a little bummed by it, to be honest. Yeah, I mean, if we look back, we should have beat the Cardinals. I mean, we had that one run that should have never been a holding call. If Carlos Hyde gets that first down against the Cardinals, we win that game. and it's over. And then we're talking about a completely different thing. And that continues the momentum going as well. So we wouldn't even talking about like, having that loss. It'd be a completely different game. And so, yeah, you look back and it's frustrating, but do the Packers really deserve to be the number 1 seed? Like, I don't think so either. Tampa Bay doesn't deserve it. Like, there's a lot. So, yeah, I think we deserve it just as much as any other NFC West team or any other NFC team. So for me, yeah, you can look back and be, it's as frustrating as you want. There's a lot of games that we've lost that we're in and had an opportunity to win. Even the first Rams game, we were in that game and we could have won that one. Apart from the Bills, maybe there's not one game I don't think we should have lost, to be honest. I mean, the Bills just came out and played a hell of a lot better than us. So, yeah, for me, I look at it and we could be, you could be talking about a 1-loss team. I think we deserve it just as much as anybody else. Why not?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think I really hope that if the Packers end up getting it, that the Seahawks do end up winning the NFC West and can be the 2 or the 3, because I just don't fancy the Seahawks winning in Lambeau. They've just not. They've never played well there. They've not had a good game in Lambeau for years, Robbie. They've been going over there and playing their worst football. And for some reason, Aaron Rodgers plays like, quarterback possessed whenever he plays the Seahawks. So whether that's the Fail Mary, whether it's the NFC Championship game, he's got a lot of reason to want to play well against Seattle. I don't want to go there. But I do think that the Packers are beatable by another team. So it's, if you don't have to play them until potentially the NFC Championship game, there is a chance that they lose in the divisional round if they are the number 1. But I mean, if they end up playing Tampa Bay or even Arizona in Green Bay, as a Packers fan, I would be more fearful of that than playing Seattle, or the Rams even. I think that's a more fearful game. I think that they get themselves up for the Seahawks. So if the Seahawks can avoid playing them, I do think the Seahawks can match up against the Saints and some of these other teams. That doesn't mean I think they could beat them, but I think they would have a better chance of beating them than the Packers. So, I hopefully they do win this game for that reason as well, that if it is Packers number 1, that the Seahawks can avoid them. There is some news on Josh Gordon. Obviously, we all expected that he was going to play. He's now not going to play. I don't think there's that much we can say about this, Robbie. I know a lot of people have been sort of having a go at the NFL. I lean more towards the thought that the NFL must have a reason for this. And, there are so many other players who come back into the league who have had a lot of issues, shall we say, to put it nicely. And there has to be more to this than I think we know. There are very few details about exactly what is going on with Josh Gordon. Nobody ever says exactly, for example, what the substance is. And people assume what the substance is, but we just don't know anything about this situation. And that is, it's very clear that Josh, unfortunately, has some very strong personal demons. And the NFL is doing what it's done. I don't think there's any worth criticising the NFL like a lot of fans do. I think we just sort of have to hope that whatever happens, that this man can turn it around. I'm not sure that it's ever going to work for him in the NFL. This just felt like last chance saloon. And if he doesn't get on the field by next week, I don't think it's going to happen for him, which is a shame, given he's so talented and could have been a legendary receiver in this league. But it does mean that, I hope you're ready, let David Moore cook is coming back this weekend.
Yeah, I feel really bad for Josh Gordon. The guy's just struggling with his demons, and he's so talented on the field that I was really looking forward to seeing him back and was hoping that this would be it and that he'd be able to turn it around. You're right. There's not enough information out there to really know anything, but man, it was super just disheartening to see that, like it's so frustrating and you just feel bad for the kid and hope that he can turn it around. But yeah, I think this is kind of the last chance for him in the NFL.
I can just imagine I can see the play script now, Robbie. That first drive, first pass goes to Tyler Lockett. Second pass goes to David Moore, or it's an end around, or it's something like this, because obviously DK, they're not going to throw to DK this game because Jalen Ramsey's going to be there. So DK might as well not take the field. It's a David Moore game. It's got to be a David Moore game. It's got to be 7-8 targets for the Morster. He's going to give us all a a masterclass in receiving as he usually does. But that's the role of a number one receiver, is to, you feature the guy, you let him carry you home. So, I'm looking forward to seeing David Moore beat the Rams this weekend, or at least try to. So we can all
I know you're
look forward to that.
but I really don't like
that. Oh dear. Well, I will say one last thing on this. I think it's up to the Seahawks, Robbie, to come up with a proper number 3. I think the game is, the NFL is where it is right now. I think the Chiefs have kind of set the blueprint. You need a lot of weapons. And the Seahawks would be in a lot of bother if they ever did lose DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And we've seen at various points this year where Tyler's been banged up and hasn't been quite as effective. And DK Metcalf I don't know how he survived that, extended knee in Washington. That would have been a catastrophe if he would have got injured in that game. You need a number 3. And in the last draft, there was, I talked about a lot going into the draft. It was a fantastic receiver draft again. And, for me, it was set up to go pass rush and fix your D-line in free agency and then target your skill positions and your O-line in the draft. And if they'd have done that, you have a guy on a 3-year deal, 4-year deal, 5-year deal on $2 million a year with great club control, and you end up with an Ayuk or a Jefferson or a Claypool, or these guys who went very early in the draft, and then you could be, rather than having to rely on Josh Gordon's and Philip Dorsett's or flirt with Antonio Brown, you don't need to do any of that. You've got your third receiver now. With so few draft picks, I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that next year. But if there's an opportunity to get a really talented, dynamic, athletic young receiver at the end of round 2, I hope they seriously consider it, because that to me is a position that they need a number 3. They need a number 3, and if they can get one cheap on a club control contract, even better. I want to quickly talk about the draft in a second with you, Rob, before we go. Final on this sort of game, I listened to Pete Carroll's press conference today, and Pete is, he is, oh my word, he's back on Pete. Pete Ball is back. It is back with a vengeance. Pete Ball 3 with a vengeance is here, right? He is talking about completing the circle and balanced football and complementary football. Let Russ cook has gone in the bin, right? It is gone. He is determined that I thought they had to do that at the start of the season to prop up the defense. I think Pete's decided now the defense is playing at a certain level, that there were too many interceptions, that it was too much on Russell, and he's gone back to this. And he's talking about, this is the way we need to play to win games late in the season and the postseason. So this is how there's 2 sort of thoughts on this. One, if it doesn't work, get ready, because Seahawks Twitter is going to be insufferable all off season. And 2, I think this is going to set the tone for what they do in the off season, because I think Pete has sort of had a come to Jesus moment during the season, and he decided, look, we had needs must at the start of the year with letting Russ throw it all over the park, but I think he's decided that no, turnovers, winning the turnover battle, playing complementary football, that is what they need to do to win. I think he has thoroughly, despite all of the positivity he's putting out in his press conferences, I think he's felt 5 and 4 in the last 9 badly, and I think he feels perhaps there's been a missed opportunity here to be the number 1 seed and have a better year than even they've had, Robbie. I think it's set up for Pete Ball with a vengeance, not just now, but in the off season and in the future. And I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with Pete on this. Like, I actually think running the football postseason is what's going to benefit us the most. You keep guys like Aaron Rodgers off the field, Drew Brees, you keep the quarterbacks off the field, and you establish and control the clock. And, I really think this is going to be what's going to work for us going forward. I was all for let Russ cook at the beginning of the season, and it worked. And I actually don't put it on Russ all that much. I mean, there's been a couple of boneheaded decisions that he's made. Like, why are you throwing that? Like, he's trying too hard. But at the same time, I think some of the time it's just that game plan, like the play calling and taking too many shots deep instead of going away from the quick slants or, little bubble screen or anything. Just like too many times I'm like, what are they doing with the play calling? So I put a lot on it on Schottenheimer, and I know I'm probably people are getting annoyed hearing me talk about that, but for me, it falls on him a lot. The offensive coordinator needs to do a better job. Like, teams have figured Russ out, help him out. You know, they attack him in a certain way. You can't just keep running the same thing over and over and over. You know, it worked early. Now that they figured it out, you got to adjust. And so I just don't feel like he's done a good job at adjusting. That being said, running the football is absolutely going to lead us the furthest way, furthest in the playoffs. You know, you get to a cold Lambeau Field, you're gonna need to be able to run the football. So I'm all for that. And then, you know, going forward in the draft, or, you know, going forward in this offseason, I think you're right. It's going to be a big sign of how they're going to approach it. We do need a number 3 receiver. You know, I think, you know, David Moore is fine as a number 4, but, you know, we need a more established number 3 receiver. And it's a big offseason for us when it comes to running back. I mean, do you pay Carson? Do you not pay Carson? This is a big thing. Well, your salary cap and all these things, it's going to be interesting to see how they approach it. But, you know, both Carlos Hyde and him are free agents. You know, they have to decide what they're going to do with Rashad Penny. Is, you know, can they trust him to stay healthy? These kind of things. So it's going to be an offseason where they're going to have to, you know, really decide on how they're going to approach it. And we're going to have a lot of needs. I mean, we're going to talk about cornerback. We're going to be talking about, you know, the safety position, you know, the D line, you know, who do you have going at left guard? You know, does Posett come back at center? There's a lot of things that we're going to be discussing and going forward this offseason.
And I will have a mock draft on the blog on Christmas Eve. It's a traditional thing to have a mock draft on the blog. And, you know, the pick that I've given Seattle, Robbie, it's not that people are going to dislike it. I think people will like the thought process and the person. I think what they won't like is the scenario that I've painted here. It's an offensive lineman, but I will not. I'll see if people can guess it between now and tomorrow when it goes live. But it's the scenario around the thing that I don't think people like. It's funny when you talk about the draft, you're talking about all the needs there. It's like, I can, you know, you say, oh yeah, Richard Sherman, you know, I can imagine Richard Sherman coming back. And then you say, like, defensive line, I say, well, you know, Dunlap's done all right, and maybe they can maybe they'll convince themselves that the rest of it's fine. And they can just maybe they'll just get somebody, you know, this really weird off season. It's just add one more guy to that mix, a really talented player to bookend with Dunlap, because I've got no faith in Taylor until he shows it. You know, I'm not gonna trust that he's going to be there until he's actually there. So if they get somebody else, I'm thinking, yeah, and it's just the running back position. It's like people say, you know, what do you do? That is going to be such a big question. And you know what? I was watching Alabama last week, and I'm watching Najee Harris, and I'm doing a mock draft, and I'm putting him in the 20s, and I'm thinking, oh, do you know what? I don't know if he's necessarily Pete's ideal type of runner, but he's so damn talented. And I was just watching that Alabama game against Florida, and I'm thinking, he's just got stud written all over him, you know. He's just such a classy player. And it would have been so easy to slip him into the Seahawks in round 1. And, you know, everybody would have hated it, you know, on Seahawks Twitter, and would have had all that foaming at the mouth again. But he would have just solved so many issues, and you could have just got a backup or Carson or whoever. And that, but no, alas, no. They're going to have to find a way around. That's why I think Carson's coming back. So I don't think they can find anybody in the draft who they could trust to do this. Because as we mentioned, if you're going Pete Ball, you can't go Pete Ball with DJ Dallas and Travis Homer, you know, and Rashad Penny. If you're doing Pete Ball, you need we've been doing this for 10 years now. They need their Marshawn, they need their Chris Carson, they need somebody who's going to do that. And I think look, Robbie, I think it's right. I think here's a quick final point on this whole Pete Ball thing is, I think what the Chiefs have shown, I think a lot of people think the Chiefs have just shown you can throw it 100 million times with Mahomes, and that's how everybody should play. I think what they've actually shown is two main things. One, Patrick Mahomes is going to be the best player that's ever played the game. That's one. And two, that nobody else has got Patrick Mahomes. Not even Russell is Patrick Mahomes. So let's just accept that and move on. And two, you need to be able to win in different ways. Now, more often than not, the Chiefs can win with Mahomes. They go to Buffalo and run the ball and beat Buffalo. Not many teams have done to Buffalo what the Chiefs have done. The other team who did it, Tennessee Titans, Derrick Henry. You've got to be able to win in different ways. It can't just all be on your QB, in the same way that it can't always be on your running game. There are going to be some games when you need Russell to throw for 300-400 yards and 5 touchdowns or whatever. There are going to be some games where you need 170 rushing yards. And that's just the way the NFL is. And the whole world's got obsessed with throw in and the the win percentage of every play. And well, if you punt on 4th and 1, you get a 3% advantage if you go for it in terms of likelihood of winning. It's like, well, you know, I'm sorry, with the greatest respect to those numbers, I don't think teams should be spending as much time focusing on such small percentages to determine their decision making play by play. I just don't. I think there is something to be said for playing the long game sometimes, and trying some tried and tested measures, because the game's the game. You know, there's definitely a place for analytics. No, you know, you'd be daft to say there isn't. There's a big place for it, a huge place for it. I'm not sure that every decision has to be as well. In 10,000 attempts, you know, 6,000 times this is the best thing to do. There's still 4,000 times when it doesn't go well, and you know, these are every game's different, and I think the Seahawks have to be able to win in different ways, and that's what complementary football is all about. It's not just about having one player who does it all, and that's the key. And I'm glad the Seahawks are doing that at the end of this season. I really hope that it gets them back to the Super Bowl, or at least the NFC Championship game, and that we can use that as a springboard to build next season. Because I have no issue with Pete. Pete with Pete's identity, I can live with. Pete with no identity and the Seahawks scrambling around to work out what they are, I can't live with. And at times this year, that's what they've been. If Pete's here, let's do what Pete wants to do. He won't be here forever. There'll be a new era. I don't think you're wasting Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is the best point guard in the game. There's nothing wrong with him being a point guard. Right. Final point before predictions, Robbie. I know it's been a long one, but I wanted to get into this. As you well know, I'm very interested in the draft. I am just doing the mock draft has killed me this week because of that Jets win. I have absolutely no idea what to do with the Jets, because now that the Jaguars are in pole position for Trevor Lawrence, what the hell do you do with the Jets? Do you give them Fields? Do you give them Wilson? You know, the other QBs? Do they stick with Darnold now? Do they take Penny Sewell? Do they take it? You know, what the hell do the Jets do now? You know, for weeks, I just assumed the Jets were going to be number one. They get Lawrence. The Jags are going to be number two. They get whoever's the second best quarterback. And then the Bengals get Penny Sewell, who are number three, and they beat the bloody Steelers. So now he's thinking maybe they'll move their way out of. Yeah, when you do mock drafts, you just kind of want easy picks. And thanks to the Jets, they've kind of just blown up that sort of first frame of the draft. And I just don't, what did the Jets do? And as a Jets fan, you've had to suffer through 13 games of misery where you've just been abject, a disgrace to the sport of football. And you think, it's okay. We just got 3 more games of this, and the prize for all this suffering is Trevor Lawrence. And now they're not even going to get Trevor. You know, they've had to suffer through all this. And for what? 1 win against the Rams. That's what you get, fellas. Merry Christmas.
I'll tell you, I have an idea that I think is going to happen, and maybe a lot of people aren't going to agree with me, but I think you could easily give them Justin Fields and be like, that's their guy. That okay, the second best quarterback. There you go. But I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, Rob. The Dallas Cowboys are going to trade up into the second pick. They're going to let Dak walk, and they are going to take Justin Fields. And then the Jets, who have the second pick in the draft, will trade down to 4 or 5 or whatever they have, and then they'll do whatever they need to do from there. Maybe they go try to get a free agent or something. But I think the Dallas Cowboys are not going to pay Dak, and they're going to trade up and get the number 2 pick. That is my prediction.
That is a fantastic, it's such a good prediction, Robbie, that maybe I will just find a way to sneak that into the mock draft, and with a credit to your good self for this edition, for this Christmas Eve, because that is a really interesting thought. But it's amazing, you know, I'd love a penny for the thought of the ownership at the Jets, who've clearly stuck by Adam Gase for this whole length of time, purely because they thought he was going to bank them the number 1 overall pick in Trevor Lawrence. And the thing about Trevor Lawrence is, at every level, I mean, he's lost 1 game in his life. And that was the game against LSU. He didn't lose any in high school. Didn't lose any at Clemson. He's lost 1 game against LSU. It was the best LSU team that's ever lived last year. And that was in the championship game. So no disrespect for that. he looks like a cartoon character of a quarterback. If there was like a cartoon series about a brilliant winning quarterback, he would be designed to look like Trevor Lawrence. Right? And everything about him is just superstar. Like he's like a god, football god with his hair. Everything kind of looks a bit like a skinny Thor. Like he's going to come in, and the Jets are going to make billions off this guy. He just looks the part. He's a brilliant player. He could be like a more athletic Peyton Manning. He's the key to Super Bowls. He's the key to marketing supremacy. It's New York. It's a perfect fit. And then they beat the Rams, and like Adam Gase must have been on the plane, sort of going, "Have some of that," showing them the rod on the way.
They should have fired him after the win. That would have been awesome.
Just crazy. They're not even going to get that now. And you're right. Like, what do you do? Because they've got to make a call on Darnold for the option on his contract, and they might decide that there's he's not the guy. But then, what do you do? Just go for the next best one, and what if that doesn't work? And as a franchise, it felt like they needed Trevor Lawrence, and now they're not even going to get Trevor. And also the Jaguars, and you kind of think, well, the Jaguars aren't going anywhere, and they're not doing this, and they're not doing that. Also, they could get Trevor Lawrence, and now you're looking at the Jaguars as like, wow, the Jaguars could actually be something interesting for the next few years. And
they have the receiving core.
And then the other aspect of it, what if Trevor Lawrence decides he's going to pull an Eli Manning, or he's going to say, I don't want to go to Jacksonville, I want to go to New York anyway, or what if he's going to say, I want to go to Dallas? I don't know. Who knows? I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is necessarily the kind of guy that would do that. I don't think there's the scope to do that as much these days. I think there's too much scrutiny on these young men that Eli Manning wouldn't have had. Think of Eli Manning when he did it. If he was on Twitter, what the reaction would have been to that. And these kids are all on Twitter, Robbie, and they'd have just been getting abuse for the rest of their careers. And I think actually we underestimate that as a kid, as a 21-year-old young man, the thought of pissing off an entire fan base just to go and play somewhere else, I don't think that's as realistic as it was when like Elway did it and Eli did it and stuff like that. But I'm fascinated by the whole Jets thing. I feel for Jets. I've been to a Jets game. I'm Tony Pauline, who I have massive respect for, is a diehard Jets fan, and I feel for them because I kind of put myself in their shoes and think, if this was the Seahawks, and you think you just watched the thing that's got you through the whole year is watching Clemson games, isn't it? And watching like highlights of Clemson games and dreaming of Big Trev in a Jets jersey, and you don't even get that. Justin Fields.
I saw a picture of some dude who had a Jets jersey on, had Lawrence in the back, and he was just like at a bar, just like, no, you gotta kidding me. Honestly, if I was the Jets, I'd trade the second pick. I'd trade down to 5, 6, and then I would take Zach Wilson. I think Zach Wilson could probably be the second best quarterback in the draft. So in my opinion, that's what I would do. Try to get as much as you can get, and then, take him.
I would poison the pre-game meal of whoever is playing the Jaguars on Sunday or Saturday, so that the Jaguars win. Jaguars win a game. I tell you what, though, the Jaguars are flirting with danger, putting Gardner Minshew back in because he's more capable of winning a game than Mike Lennon. So you know what? Maybe Doug Marone's got a little move to make himself between now. There's 2 games to go. Jaguars I don't know who the Jaguars are playing. Maybe they're playing 2 good teams. I don't know. But you just never know. It's been a crazy year. Wouldn't be surprised if the Jets end up with him back there anyway. Right. Prediction time. I am going to predict a Seahawks win, Robbie, because I'm feeling festive. I have no confidence in predicting a Seahawks win because of the reasons I've already given. It's the Rams. They're 5-1 against Seattle in the last 6, and they always seem to muddy things up against Seattle. But I don't know whether this is a prediction more than just a hope, but I just want to see the Seahawks come out and play their most complete game of football this season. They haven't done it yet. I don't classify nearly blowing a 17-point lead as a complete performance. And I've just got a sense that maybe they will win this game 23-15. What do you think?
Here's my thought. Jamal Adams, Carlos Dunlap, they are making their first playoff appearance. they've never tasted what it tastes like to win a division. I think they come out and they get after it. I think they both have a great game. I think they want the NFC West. I think the Seahawks come out. It's still going to be close. I'm going to say Seahawks win 28-27. It's going to be a nail biter, but the Seahawks are going to pull it out, and we are going to be the NFC West champions, and I am going to be super pumped by it. And I think Russ has a great game. I think he bounces back. I think DK has a great game. I've already said it. I think he goes over at least 80 yards and a touchdown. And I think Chris Carson's that X factor. I think him and Carlos Hyde are the X factor. I think they're both going to have great games, and we're going to establish a run. And it's going to be a game that it's going to be frustrating because I do think the Rams will be able to move the ball on us early. I think, like I said, they're going to come out and they're going to put points on us early, and we're going to have to catch back up. But it's going to be a polar opposite from what we saw last week, where we played 3 quarters of good football and then a 4th quarter bad. I think we probably struggle a little bit early. We figure it out, and then that second half is when we turn it on. We're going to beat the Rams 28-27. Seahawks.
Good stuff. I hope that it is a win either way, and I will take 28. I prefer my version though. The 23-15 sounds more. Yeah, make it 23-14. It's easier at the end. It'll be less stressful. I want to see a good win. Good win. That's what I want to see. A really good victory to clinch this division, and then I want to go and see us smash the Niners. And usually at a time like this, Robbie, we throw in the caveat that if there's any, opposing fans listening, we have respect for the team. It's not, we're not being homers. We're just telling it how it is. We've predicted losses in the past, but there aren't any Rams fans, so we don't have to do that this time. Just finally, Christmas. It's Christmas Day before this game. It's Christmas Day on Friday. Robbie, what is a Christmas day like in the Williams household? What will it be like? What are you hoping to get from you? It's Santa Claus in America, isn't it? We here in Yorkshire we say Father Christmas. You may well say Santa Claus. What are you hoping for? What is Christmas like for your good self?
Well, this year, who knows? With COVID, it's going to be different. So just family, hopefully, and then just chill. It's a lot like Thanksgiving, where you just make food and hang out and eat, and I'll spend a lot of time with my kids, so I'll do that.
I am cooking for the first time. I've never cooked a Christmas dinner. We would go to my mother-in-law's for a Christmas dinner, so I'm doing it for the first time. I'm not doing a turkey because, frankly, it seems like a lot of work, and I'm not a huge turkey fan. I am cooking a Wagyu beef for Christmas Day. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And I don't know how it is in America right now. Over here, we have like ever-changing COVID rules. So we were originally going to be given 5 days to basically do what the heck you wanted over Christmas and visit family and, go to a couple of different households. But then at the last minute, they've put the kibosh on that. Now it's only Christmas Day. So it's all been constricted into one. And I think we're probably all going to end up in lockdown as a consequence of us all having a Christmas together. But either way, to all of our listeners, I hope you have a fantastic Christmas and make the most of it. And I hope that you stay safe and stay well. It's been a very difficult year for a lot of people. So I hope that, if nothing else, you can enjoy Christmas and enjoy this game against the Rams. I hope you've enjoyed the podcast this year, because I realize we're coming to the end of the regular season now. I hope, even if you haven't agreed with us throughout the season, that you've at least enjoyed listening to our views. We'll, of course, be back at the end of the Rams game, and I hope sincerely that we are talking about a victory against these LA Rams. We're due a big win against the Rams. Let's hope it happens this weekend, and then let's go and finish the season off against the Niners. Thanks for listening. Seahawks Draft Blog for more analysis. Don't forget to like the video. It helps promote the video, gets the views out there. It'd be really nice if this really positive Seahawks preview could get us back into the 2003 view range. So let's see if we can do that. Leave a comment, share, spread the message. Have an amazing Christmas, and we'll see you on Sunday.